those cool, right?
Yeah.
You like them, Kinley?
I want a stock one too.
That's okay, school, so probably not different. Oh, look at that pumpkin.
No, we're not touching.
Oh, here's all the pumpkins. Those are gorgeous. Look at the little trees with snow on them.
I have this tree in my house.
I know, it's amazing.
Love it.
That one's like a
Keep your
little
hands down,
doll.
sweetie.
Ooh, I like that.
How long that would take.
That's so cool.
Don't touch it.
We're gonna put them together.
Why did you get what?
Zero, three.
It's a very beautiful sculpture. It is made by Anne Gardner. It was born in America in 1947. It was made in the United States, Seattle, Washington in 2007. Here we have a couple of other designs, the Feathers 3 and the Decline. I cannot pronounce that word.
Wow. It's called the Caretaker of the Sand.
Next up is a very amazing, beautiful creation. It may look fuzzy, but it is very, very
That is
sharp.
really cool.
Do not touch it. You will
All those different
bleed.
shards of glass.
When you get up close, it doesn't really look fuzzy. But from behind, it does.
It's really cool.
It's
That's
like
cool.
fuzz. But you can see the reflection in the glass.
Look at this dress.
Right here, we have many different designs. They are hard to know what they are. Only the creator knows.
Wait, there's just knives. It's raining knives. From out of the sky. Knives. Somebody else's.
What is this, guys?
This is very bell. As you can see, it is super duper bright in here to let the beauty of the glass flow through the room for all to see. It is very, very interesting creation.
Look, you can see a reflection in it.
It was made in
It's probably not school appropriate.
Okay, goodbye.
They're like, no.
This is the one where they have the spiky animal right here.
This was Caleb's favorite, he said.
That was
That is so cool. Cool.
This bit's really cool.
Okay.
It has a tree on it. One of the green ones has a tree.
Trees made glasses.
And then we got the layer piece. They use the power. This is an array. Oh, crap. And get those, like those cords, and you can make your own stuff.
Or a weekend, depending on how it's heated and cooled. And so one of the interesting things for you to know about glass to start with is that when you change the temperature of glass, you're also changing the size of it. Glass swells when it's heated and it shrinks as it cools. You're not going to be seeing that with the naked eye because it happens at the atomic level. But what you can see is that I'm heating a ring around this portion of a glass bottle. And that means part of the glass is starting to swell a little bit right now. The rest of it is trying really hard to stay the same size that it was. So that's creating a little tug of war in the glass, and we call that thermal stress. So if I control the amount and the placement of the stress by controlling the way that I heat the glass, I can also control when and where the glass is going to break. Kind of like this. And so you can see, breaks in a nice neat ring right around where I was heating it. Thank you. So that's because of the swelling. It builds up that stress until it almost can't stand it anymore. At the last minute, I touched it with a little bit of moisture, and that changes the temperature suddenly. That's called thermal shock. So that's going to add enough stress that the glass can't stand it anymore, and it breaks apart in order to relieve the stress. So that's a technique that's called score and crack. It's used in the glassmaking industry to create very precision cuts when they're making things like drinking glasses and wine goblets, those tubes that they use for fluorescent lighting. That's just taking advantage of the natural behavior of the glass. So I told you can't see thermal stress with the naked eye, but you can see it in what's called a polariscope. So this is made of two polarizing filters. There's a light in the back that shines less likely to break. And if the glass is annealed, that means the stresses have been removed. That's to stabilize the glass. Now, plastic also swells when it's heated and shrinks as it cools, and I bet you might have broken a CD case before, right? I'm going to show you why. There's a whole bunch of uneven stress trapped in there. And that's because plastic is manufactured in a way that's really similar to glass. It gets heated up, it gets shaped in a mold, it gets cooled, the thin parts anneal the glass, and so no stress to be seen in there because the annealing has removed the stress. Pretty much any glass in your home is going to be regular annealed glass, and we know that's nice and stable. We also know from experience, though, that pretty much any type of glass breaks under the right circumstances, but it might be different circumstances for different types of glass because they have different strengths. This one is laminated glass. There are two layers of annealed glass here, and there's a real thin layer of plastic in between there that's holding them together. No stress here either, but the important difference between this one and the first one is the layering, and this is also called safety glass. Thermally tempered glass. This one's 5 times stronger than annealed glass and loaded with stress. So here's our example of glass where the stress actually makes it stronger. And that's because that stress was put in there on purpose. You can see it has a kind of organized pattern to it. So this would have started as annealed glass. It was just like that first piece to start with. But then, after it's been cut to size, they heat it again. And just before it's going to melt, they blast it with jets of cold air on both sides. So the surface cools and shrinks really fast and really evenly. And that creates a layer of compression on the surface. That's the strong stress. So that's going to force the fragile tension stress to the inside. It ends up being protected by that strong compression on the outside. So it's the arrangement of those stresses that's making that glass very impact resistant. Our last piece is what's called a Bologna vial, named after the city of Bologna, Italy, because that's where this type of thing was really first understood. And basically that's a bubble of glass. It's open on one end, it's real thick on the other end. They make these for us right here over at the Hot Glass Show. Then they just cool them in the air. That's a really unusual thing to do with glass. You do end up with a lot of uneven stress trapped in there because that glass, that's not annealed at all. And you're going to see that except for a demonstration like this one, you really wouldn't have much use for a piece of glass that was not annealed. All right, so I've locked the samples down into our little chamber of destruction. We're going to proceed with some glass breaking now. And in order to break this glass, I am going to need a volunteer. Oh, how about you in the blue there? Come on up. Thank you. Would you stand right there for me? Hi, what's your name? Ray. Ray? Ray. Oh, hi, Ray. Can you put the safety glasses on for me, please? So, Ray, it works like a pinball machine. You're going to pull back on the handle, and then you're going to just let it go to break the glass, okay? You're going to do this one first. So, Ray's going to break the annealed glass first. You're going to have a close-up view on the monitor, so go right in. Perfect. Pretty fun, right? Annealed glass, it breaks in a familiar way. If you've ever dropped a drinking glass or accidentally thrown something through a window, you end up with these sharp shards of glass. So these are all different sizes and shapes, and they're flying off in all directions. That's because of the impact. So annealed glass, really common, really useful, but it breaks into sharp pieces. So that's the kind of glass we probably don't want to have in, say, car windshields, just in case that glass breaks while you're driving. You don't want shards flying toward you. So for that, we use the laminated glass. Nice. So laminated or safety glass, and you can see why it's called safety glass. That layer of plastic is holding the shards together. This is the kind of glass used for car windshields to keep the shards from flying into the car in case there's an impact. Bullet-resistant glass, that's another interesting type of laminated glass, but it's made of multiple layers of glass and plastic together. Thermally tempered glass, this one's 5 times stronger than the other. It still breaks pretty well in our case. That's because here at the Glass Breaking Show, we're just kind of determined to break everything. And we make sure that that really strong piece of glass breaks by putting a sharp point on the end of just that particular hammer. Because remember, it's the compression on the surface that's making it impact resistant. So you can pound on that really hard. You saw me do that on the metal railing, not have it break. But if you scratch through the surface like we did with the metal, with the point on the hammer there, you're getting down into that fragile tension area, and tempered glass breaks in a pretty specific way. You're going to see that little pattern of cubes in there. That's coming from the stress that's built into the glass. And the edges of the pieces, relatively square. They're not nearly as sharp as shards of annealed glass. So tempered glass gets used in places where it would be especially dangerous to have sharp shards of glass, like shower doors, picture windows, the backboards of basketball hoops, and the side and rear windows of our cars. So Ray, this one comes in from the top. You're going to grab the handle, lift it up carefully, and then give it a nice hard whack, please. And remember, there is a lot of stress in there. Hit that again, please. And one more time, just for good measure. Very good. So he's definitely hitting it hard, right? And when we expect it to break kind of easily, we saw there was a lot of stress in there. But there's a couple reasons why this one is not going to break easily. One of them has to do with the shape. So you'll notice it's basically an egg shape. We don't think about eggs being all that strong. We crack them pretty easily. But if you've ever tried to crush an egg just by squeezing it, eggs are hard to crush. Architecturally, an oval is a really strong shape. But more specific to our demo is the compression and tension story one more time. So if we think about this bubble when it was hot, it's cooling very fast in the air. So the surface cools and shrinks, locks in place. The inside's cooling a little more slowly. So when it's trying to finish shrinking, it just can't shrink as much as it wants to. The outside's already hard, it's holding it kind of stretched out. The inside of that bubble, that's like a rubber band. It's been pulled as tight as it'll go, and it's locked in place. That's tension stress on the inside, but it's so strong with compression on the outside, we can pound on that with a hammer all day, and we're not going to break it. But Ray, you think we can break it with this dainty little needle? You do? Okay, let's try it. We're going to thread it into the open end of the bubble. You're going to grab it up here. Hold it lightly though, because this time you're not going to hit it, you're just going to drop it, okay? So from right there, drop. And you are absolutely right. There's the illustration of the tension stress. It's so tight in there with tension stress, it's really trying to let the stress go. So the little tap of the needle on the inside of the bubble releases that stress and breaks it into a lot of pieces. That's the end of the Bologna vial. And that is also the end of the demo. So let's have a nice round of applause for Ray, our class breaker. Good job. Little less dinosaur for you to take home immediately. So let me know if you have questions. Have a great day at the museum. Thanks a lot for coming.
When I was up there, this is the glass that breaks with the sharp thing. That's what this is saying.
Neat.
I got a little dinosaur from being a volunteer. He has cute little black eyes.
So cute. Did you?
Yes, I have a toy dog. Tell me, it's fortunate these children here play with toys.
Uh-huh.
Oh, what are their names?
This is Ezra and Ray and Kinley.
Ezra, Ray, and Kelly.
Close.
Two future.
That's how many people have bent glass today. I've bent it twice.
Yeah, you don't think of glass being able to bend, do you?
What is that for me? How is that glass?
Oh, that's cool.
That's not glass. No, some of it's not glass. Like that, that's not glass.
All the guys climbing on the ropes.
There's an octopus up top.
Yeah, I saw the octopus. Yep, that's really cool.
There's a dolphin.
Well, like I said before.
Yeah, but don't touch it. Just put it. Oh my gosh. I have to stay over it. It's like honeycomb. It's honeycomb.
You're supposed to start where your height is, so I guess right there at the very bottom. Sorry, look, you gotta look up.
You see some cool in there?
Yeah, I see the parking. Did it work?
Oh, your face is giant. I went the wrong way. That's really funny. Is our face giant too?
No, wait.
Look at
We're going the wrong way. We have to go that way. Yeah, it's over here. There's the thingy, the soundy thingy.
The sounding thing? Oh, yeah, neat. Okay, let's do this first though, buddy. Oh. Sorry. Oh, I get it. Oh, look.
It's a smart window.
Kinley's magically appears.
So if you want to look out your window, you just stand on
I
it.
see.
They're so cool.
That's really cool. I love that. Ray's dancing.
Isn't that cool?
You guys are too cute. walking on the moon.
This is what the moonwalk is.
Ezra's making the new moonwalk dance.
What? It's so big.
It is called New Glass How, and I bet as you've been walking around the museum, you've seen a lot of the banners and signs that say New Glass Now on them. In fact, most of you are wearing a sticker that says New Glass Now. And that's because we have this big special exhibit that just opened this summer at the museum called New Glass Now. And it's an exhibit of 100 different works of glass art that are very new. They've all been made within the last few years. Some glass objects are made to serve a specific purpose. You can think of something like a lemonade pitcher, a beautiful cut crystal lemonade pitcher, or a window pane, for instance. Those are glass objects that are clearly designed to serve a specific purpose, and we're all pretty comfortable with how to approach them, what we're supposed to do with them. But when it comes to art, it's not always quite as obvious how we're supposed to approach it or what we're supposed to experience from it. And since we have this big art exhibit, and because most of us that do the live demos here at the museum are glass artists, we thought this would be a nice opportunity to talk a little bit with you about what we think makes an art object, an art glass object, different from other kinds of glass objects. And glass will want to break apart at that joint. And if you can sort of picture what's happening on the inside of that tubing, when I melt half of it, or melt the bottom half of it and let it sort of close in on itself, inside there is a very flat sort of floor, and then it's meeting up to the sides of the tubing at a 90-degree angle. So that's a real fragile state for glass to be in. It wants to crack at that area where the thick part is joining the thin part. So one of the things I'm going to be doing here as I set up that oval shape is inflating the top part in stages. I'm going to alternate. First I'm going to melt in this orange glass, and then I'm going to alternate heating and puffing little bits of air into that top part to make the bubble. And the goal of that is that I'm going to create a curve on the inside of the bubble so it transitions from thick to thin gradually. Now, that's not going to be something that you can actually see, which is why I'm telling you about it. And so since it takes a couple minutes to get the egg shape set up, I thought while I'm doing this, I would tell you a little bit about my history and the way that people would respond to those kind of really interesting. So animation was something that I loved and did for a long time, and eventually ended up working with glass. And you'll see as I'm developing this little glass character that I'm using that same kind of systematic thinking, where I'm going to be taking advantage of the simplest shapes that I can make out of glass and putting them together to make a combination. There's above the booth here, so if you're not seeing one, you can scoot around a little till you can. It's also the same photo that's on this cardboard that's in the window. About what I was going to make. I liked the fact that it was toy-like, that it was kind of cartoonish and whimsical, and I thought, well, it would be interesting to make something that would move as well, because I had that background in animation. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be neat if I could make something with wheels, or maybe make something with hinged parts?
those cool, Ray?
Yeah.
You like them, Kinley?
I want a stock one too.
Okay, everybody's got a rock back there. You guys too. Oh, they didn't hear me.
That's the one you don't want to
Makes her feel a little bit better about it. So different ideas that have been turned into glass projects.
I can do
Look at
this.
that.
Yes. Where's the sketch? I would do a panda.
That is adorable. That is really funny. Look at that octopus. There he is. He has a monocle and everything. Oh, and a unicorn. That's smart, right? That is really cute. Ezra. Yeah. Do you guys want to turn around and have your heads here too? Like in between them? It would be kind of fun. Yeah. So I'll just get your heads. There you go. Stand on your toes, kid. There you go. Perfect.
Like that's the sun.
Oh, neat.
Our tour guide told us about it.
Oh yeah, it's the skyline. I
Yeah.
love that. Ezra, do you think Ranger would like that?
It's two different religions, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's Do you like those chairs?
It looks like a window chair.
Yeah, it sure does. Window panes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's one Jewish and the Roman Catholics.
Oh, neat. It looks like it would be soft if you touched it. It does, you're right.
But it's like glass.
That is cool. Oh, I love that one on the right.
Yeah, me too. That one's my favorite.
These are all paperweights.
Yeah, this one's 100 pounds.
And that big one at the beginning was 100 pounds, Rose says.
Ew.
These are
Look,
beautiful.
they get tiny. They're pretty good. Oh, there's an egg. Oh, this is so
So my grandfather used to work for Corning Glass, and he collected paperweights. So it's really cool to see these because it makes me think of him. They're very detailed. No, my grandpa Cliff. Each one is so intricate and so detailed. That one's incredible.
Oh, look at those ones. This is still not the floor with all, or maybe it's that.
你的标记加玻璃的跟齐眼看到没有？因为机器做的不用抛体转贴，机器做的就不会有这个抛体的记号，所以叫做镀切，守护玻璃的第一个记号哟。
So the tool he's using right now is called a Sofietta. It's got that cone on the end, so it matches up the different sized openings. It allows them to puff a little more air in there after it's been knocked off from the blowpipe.
刚才他用 Sofietta 很重要的工具，因为它转接之后，就它为什么呢？就记得就靠这个 Sofietta 的锥形锤击工具，你知道啊？所以把肩膀抬高，会不会变薄？
So anytime there's another bit coming off the piece of glass, whether it's a foot, a handle, a stem, they're going to add that by gathering another piece of glass, which is what Katie has right now.
是的，像 Steve 讲的，所有玻璃如果外加的东西，往往就是手工玻璃的标记，用机器办的。
It says it everywhere. Everywhere
This is the
says
sample
don't
you
touch.
touch. Yeah.
Ben just got beeped because he tried to touch
Yeah, it says
the
please
actual
touch
artwork.
Please touch the sample, not the artwork.
Yes.